Good afternoon. I'm Drew Camp, the Director of Government Relations here at the Ames Chamber of Commerce, and we're here with another weekly legislative update video edition. This update brings with it the first legislative funnel of this session, at which point Senate bills have to be out of Senate committees and House bills have to be out of House committees for them to remain alive for the remainder of the session. There are some exemptions to that rule, however, whether it's a Ways and Means bill for tax policy, or it's an appropriations bill, or it's a leadership bill, and a few other kind of exemptions are there that do allow bills to stay alive for the remainder of the session. But we did see some make it through funnel and some die due to this funnel rules this week as part of the policy making process. To start with, we'll go through some of the bills that we liked that did make it through the funnel. The first one is Governor Reynolds' Future Ready Iowa bill. It's a bill for workforce development and really addressing our skills gap and our needs in workforce availability, something we're very affluent and aware of here in Ames due to the fact that we have a 1.5% unemployment. The bill passed out of both the House and the Senate, necessary House and Senate committees with bipartisan votes, which is obviously what we like to see, and there's a strong support from the business community. The one concern that has been voiced a little bit is more so the funding mechanisms. That's still a little bit blurry, and especially the community colleges, who most of the time these kind of bills fall upon to enact, they're really kind of cautious about, okay, we like the policy, but where's the money going to come from? So that's something we'll continue to monitor going forward, but we are in favor of the bill, and we are in favor of what it's offering for some solutions for the workforce development needs of the state, and then also obviously Story and County and Ames as part of the state. Another bill that did make it through, it passed out of the House Education Committee, is an extension of the SAVE sales tax penny, which goes towards school infrastructure. It's now in House Ways and Means, where it will need to pass out before it can go to a vote on the House floor, being that it is tax policy. The bill will extend the SAVE sales tax penny until 2050, and it will also provide some additional funds to equalize school transportation costs and provide some property tax relief to districts throughout the state. There was another bill also that did make it through the legislative funnel as well, and it deals with school equity for districts, more so in the allocation of their resources, and then also has some costs, figures and cost specifics in there for how they can use it for transportation costs and needs throughout their district as well. There was one bill I want to highlight that did make it through the funnel that we were hoping would not. It passed out of the Senate Local Government Committee, and it was the Religious Freedom Bill. And the business community came out heavily in opposition to the bill. Locally within the state, Principal and Wellmark are the big opponents of the bill, but then also Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple all came out in opposition, as well as the Iowa Chamber Alliance, the Iowa Association of Business and Industry, the Greater Des Moines Partnership, our own chamber, and several other business entities throughout the state. Our concerns is that it really does open up the state for liability, because there is the potential for potentially discriminatory practices if the bill is to move forward. And it also really can impact our workforce development. That's something we heard loud and clear from the business community speaking in opposition to the bill on Monday afternoon. And it's something that here in Ames, as I mentioned before, with a 1.5% unemployment, we really don't need anything happening that's going to adversely affect our ability to effectively perform our workforce development duties. So that is something that we are a little bit concerned about, and we hope it doesn't make it to the floor, because it very likely would receive national attention if it did, and it would be negative public attention that it would receive if it made it to the floor. Another bill that did not make it through was one that we were also opposed to, is the bathroom bill, similar to the bill that we saw in North Carolina a few years ago. That bill has died and will not move forward for the remainder of the session. But another bill that we did see come out that we weren't in favor of, as we never are with any bill that has to do with tax increment financing, the Senate came out with their own changes on proposed reforms to tax increment financing in the state. Some of the things it includes are are changes in definition of slum and blight in future TIF and economic development areas, the definition of economic development in future economic development tax increment finance areas, the prohibition of using it on ag parcels that are part of a century farm, a sunset for all TIF districts, and also the determination and discretion of local governments, whether it be the school or the county with their levy, to pull out of the TIF district, all things which are highly detrimental to the effectiveness of using the urban revitalization program, something that we've used very well here in Ames for extension of infrastructure in the research park, also for the Burillo project, as I've mentioned in previous weeks. So we will continue to monitor the Senate bill, but also the House bill as well, even though there has not been any movement on the House bill, and we hope that will remain the same. With regards to the deappropriations bill, there has been some movement on that, but the House and the Senate are still at odds over the exact numbers. There has been some amendments that have gone back and forth as both try to determine what's the best path forward. We have seen a decrease in some of the cuts to, say, the Economic Development Authority, community colleges, and the regents as part of this discussion has unfolded, but it has come at the expense of the high quality jobs program for direct financial assistance. That would get cut by $10 million in both bills now, and that would zero out our assistance for the remainder of the fiscal year. It would also take $10 million away from the Iowa Skilled Worker and Jobs Creation Fund, something that we use quite a bit as we work with our community college partners here in the area, and then obviously throughout the state as well. One of the big bills that we weren't happy to see finally come out was regarding tax policy, and the governor did come out with her income tax proposal for individual income tax. We were disappointed that her proposal does not include any reforms for the corporate income tax structure, but we will continue to work on that going forward. A few things that I did want to point out, some of the positives that we saw in the governor's proposal for individual income tax. It lowers individual rates. It allows business owners to deduct 25% of qualified business expenses from Iowa income tax. It increases Section 179 deductions for depreciation, from $25,000 to $100,000, and that can be big for some of our small businesses and contractors. And then it eliminates the alternative minimum tax, and it phases out federal deductibility. And it also addresses e-fairness by ensuring all revenues collected from online sales tax are returned to the taxpayers. That's a big thing for some people, as we know that some sales tax revenue has been failed to be captured as a result of e-commerce. So that's something they do want to try to address with this proposal. As I mentioned before, we were disappointed to not see corporate included. That's something we've advocated for years, and we will continue to work with the governor's office and both chambers in the legislature to see if that's something we may be able to have added in as we move forward in the remainder of session. So with that, we will continue to advocate for the inclusion of corporate income tax reform, as well as monitor TIF bills and the deappropriations process. The deappropriation bill will probably be very lively next week. There's a public hearing on Monday evening, which we plan to attend and monitor what's being said and what's happening there, and then obviously monitor what ends up happening with the bill. And then we also have several other bills, whether it be Future Ready Iowa, tax increment financing, or some other bills as far as economic development and business, pro-business environment in the state that we will continue to monitor going forward. So please watch for that next week, and thank you, and have a very good weekend.